Thank you, Wolfie, for the resub. 5 months in a row? Whoa. Holy shit, man. That's a lot. We're getting closer and closer to the end of Salome's Kiss, and I'm excited. Don't you all feel that there's just something around the corner, ready to pounce on our lovely Letitia? it feels like at any moment something's going to get her, you know? It's so exciting. I don't have much to chat about today. I'm still on that grind, prepping for the subathon. I've got most things organised, but as I do need to promo it, let me just put all the details there. So if you're curious about it and what's coming up, you can see that. But I've got a subathon coming up for June, so you can support your favourite little queer doll. And congratulations on getting first too, Wolfie. Good job. Good job, my man. But I'm excited to have you all here. It's big fun. It's big fun. Shall we? I don't have much to talk about today, so I think we'll just jump right on over to game capture. Wow. There we go. Once the giving of gifts had been completed, the Langley family set off to St. Osbert's to attend the Christmas service. This time, a little quiet compared to the game. Such is my fate. Hang on. How about now? Such is my fate. I always suffer this. Oh god, now my model's frozen up weird. There we go, she's back. If I turn this style, do you hear me more or less? More. More. Okay, I hope you hear me well then, because I'm still getting used to this mic, as is clearly being shown by my amazing scuffing. The service was every bit as dull as it usually was, and a cold draught penetrated through the church's old stone walls. When the service finally concluded, and not a moment too soon, Letty felt as stiff as a board. She clambered back into the carriage gratefully, and whiled away the rest of the day in whatever manner she best saw fit. Oh god, Hine has heard me talking, and she wants to join. Hi Hine! Hi! Hello! I'm talking to the computer people, and you want to be in the conversation too. No. Yeah, I know. Talking is so very exciting. She's having a big talk about me talking, as is her wont. Christmas dinner was served around 3 o'clock, and once more, Letty was permitted to eat in the dining room. Letty had found the Christmas breakfast impressive, but that paled in comparison to the Christmas dinner. There was so much food it seemed almost obscene, given there were only 4 people seated at the table. Letitia's distress must have shown on her face, because Arthur reassured her that the servants would eat their leftovers later. Nothing, or so he said, would go to waste. Most of Hatton's servants, as Letitia learned, had been granted Christmas Day off, much like Letitia herself. As much of the servants hailed from Beeston, they had all returned to the village to spend time with their families. Only the servants who were needed to prepare and serve the Christmas meal remained in Hatton's halls. They would be granted the 26th off instead. There were many unpleasant rumours about Arthur Langley, but Letitia had to admit that he was nothing if not generous. After eating her own body weight in turkey, or thereabouts, Letitia spent the rest of the evening in a food-induced haze. She whiled away her hours in the drawing room, playing board games with Genevieve in front of the fire until she began to tire. It was only then, exhausted, that Letitia excused herself and retreated to her bedroom. It was already 10 o'clock by this time, and Letitia was nothing short of exhausted. She had not known that eating could be so very tiring. But then again, she had never consumed such a vast quantity of rich food before. It was a first for her, but it wasn't unpleasant. She had enjoyed herself more than she had thought she would, all the more because she'd been able to spend so much time with Genevieve. It was impossible for Letitia not to feel content while she was in Genevieve's presence. It was true enough that Genevieve was unruly, and Miss Ree's scoldings were often deserved, but all the same, Genevieve made Letitia smile like nobody else. Christmas had brought the inhabitants of Hatton Manor together, but with its passing the status quo inevitably returned. Arthur Langley once more shut himself up within his study. He did not eat with his daughter in the dining room and did not speak to anyone save Miss Ree. Letitia, meanwhile, took her meals in her bedroom once more. These meals were served, as they always had been, by Diana. Letitia's daily lessons with Genevieve resumed. The pair spent most of their days together in the schoolroom while the wind rattled the window panes. The last days of December passed slowly. Genevieve seemed restless and distracted, more so than usual. She took little notes during class, and those she scribbled down were sloppy and unorganized. All the while, as Letitia tried to teach her, Genevieve stared out the window at the wind-swept moors, her lips pursed and her eyes yearning. Letitia tried to engage Genevieve, but it was difficult. She supposed she could not blame Genevieve for inattentiveness, given the circumstances. The beginning of a new year was upon them. It was a time of change and celebrations, and superstitions too. The servants had their own ways to ensure that a new year would be a good one. Diana had told Letitia that her family always opened the front and back doors at midnight to let the old year out and the new year in. I've heard of that one. That's a very fun one. I've heard of that tradition before. Letitia found this belief to be a quaintly charming one, and she told Genevieve as such. Genevieve, however, merely scoffed at this. Well, she would believe in all that silly nonsense. She's from Beeston, so she can't help but be ignorant. They're all obsessed with fairy tales over there. I think you might have mentioned that before, yes. Your grandma does it? Oh, that's lovely. I hope your grandma's lovely. And I'll mention it again, as many times as I wish. You should hear some of the servants go on. They're all delusional. Genevieve snorted. The cook is probably the worst of the bunch. She might be a large, imposing woman. Those arms of hers are like ham hocks, but she's terrified of ghoulies and ghosties. She hangs a hagstone from her bedpost, or so I've heard, to keep bad spirits away, as if they would want anything to do with her. More to do about airing out the house, but it probably started out like that. I mean, it is kind of airing out the house spiritually, too. You're airing out the old year and getting rid of it. You don't think the cook would be a prime target for any evil fairies, then? Of course not. Villainous spirits only seem to like going after pretty young virgins. They're very choosy like that. I should be the one worrying, not her. Genevieve rolled her eyes. The cook's always been a little bit balmy, but she got even worse after that poor Gareth drowned. She was going to leave Hatton, I think, but Father convinced her otherwise. He said that she was irreplaceable. Christmas dinner was very good. Oh, she's a skilled cook. I have no qualms with the food she makes. The woman herself, however, is utterly ridiculous. As Genevieve spoke, Letty cast her mind back to the eve when she had brewed Dinah's tonic. Cook had asked her a lot of questions and she had kept a close eye on her. At the time, Letty had not thought much of it. She assumed the cook was being protective of her territory, but perhaps she had been mistaken. Had the cook taken her instead for a witch? Not a witch. The most terrifying thing in the world. She's infected a lot of the scullery maids with her ideas too. More than a few girls have left, all on account of hearing a few strange noises at night. They were convinced it was my brother's ghost come back to haunt them. As if that could ever happen. Gareth was only 3 years old when he passed away, and he was the sweetest thing you could ever imagine. He couldn't have hurt a fly, much less a gaggle of grown-up scullery maids. A woman that reads and knows things? How terrifying? Exactly. I often think about how I would have been executed for many things back in the day. Executed is too kind a word. I would have been cold. I don't really like New Year's. The servants have so many silly rituals. They work one another up and get into an awful state. It's grating. I didn't seem to mind celebrating Christmas, though. Oh no, I don't mind that. I like receiving presents, at least. Cold is a great word. I have so many amazing moments where I've used the word cold. It's a very good word. It's very oh, accidentally pressed space bar. It's very clinical. Very like, it's very much like getting rid of a pest sort of feeling. Like a group of pests that have taken over a barn, or you cull them, you know? It's that sort of feeling. And I suppose it's nice to see Father. It's the only time he ever leaves his study. Genevieve's eyes remained fixed upon the window, her expression faint and far away. I used to love Christmas when I was a young girl. Mother always made it special. We fashioned paper garlands together, decorated the tree, and played games. It wasn't quite the same after Gareth died, though. Mother was so quiet and withdrawn, and she was sad all the time. It's a butcher's word, yes. Professional, yes. Very good. It's a great word. She still tried to make an effort at Christmas, but I think she was forcing herself. The magic was gone. Then last year she was too heavily pregnant to celebrate. She stayed in her room all day. I was perfectly miserable back then, but I thought it for the best, so long as the child was born safe and healthy. Thought she would pull through, but... Genevieve bit the inside of her cheek. It was only a few days after Christmas that Mother passed away. It was little more than a year ago, but it feels like a century. All the time, I wasn't sure how to cope. I thought that I would never smile again. Now, however... Genevieve paused. She looked at Letitia, her grey eyes unusually gentle. My life didn't stop, and I'm still here. You came to Hatton and you've brightened my days considerably since. Thanks to you, I can smile again. I had so much fun this Christmas. It almost felt like the good old days when I was still a child. Before Gareth. Hi, Shale. Welcome in. Happy lurking. Happy looking to everyone lurking. I don't think we'll finish today, but we're in that moment, right? Where things are going wonderfully. Letty has a girlfriend, quote unquote. And everything's going wonderfully. So you feel like there's like something lurking around the corner. The climax of the show is just about to come in. You know? So it's a very exciting moment we're in. I need to move my keyboard. I keep hitting it with my boobs. keep hitting the spacebar with my boobs. That's why it keeps jumping ahead without me meaning to. Occupational hazard, I fear. Here, Genevieve broke off. She shook her head. I had fun, but it's strange to think that a new year will soon be upon us. The more time passes, the further away I feel from my mother, and from Gareth too. They're controlling the story. They're saying, hurry up, stop prattling on about things like words and talking to people. Get on with it. Prattling, that's another great word. Prattling on about things, it's such a good word. It's like nagging, but not quite, it's a bit different. I loved my mother so very dearly. She was the most important person in the world to me, even after she became depressed and stopped acting like a mother should. I don't want to say goodbye to her, but I know I'll have to at some point. Time won't stop because I want it to. And now I'm not sure if I really do want that. Right? Prattling is a wonderful word. It's just so silly. After all, if time stopped, I wouldn't be able to spend more time with you. I do need to move my mic. Currently, it's like going over the monitor and hanging in front of the screen. And I thought, this is great. This will work perfectly, but I do have to like do that funny eye trick where I look through the mic. But I'm not properly looking through the mic. It's my eyes doing the funny eye trick. So I'll have to make it so it comes around the side, actually. It's also a bit difficult because I am short. And many things in this world are made for tall people, including desks and computer chairs. So it's a bit taller than I would like it to be. But I'll figure that out. At the moment, my current tech thing is that I need to get a new headset because my headphones are deciding to fail on me, and I need to hear people. I need to hear things. It's required. Jenny. Genevieve's pet name fell from Letitia's lips in a whisper, shocked to the point of near silence. Letitia was unsure what to say after hearing all that. No response seemed adequate to express all that she felt. Oh, new people who just came in. There's a pin that links to a post about all the info about my upcoming subathon next month, if you're curious. It's no big deal. It's not like crazy or anything. It's Pride Month. Throw money at your favorite queer bitch. You know how it is. She was sorry for Genevieve, yes, but more than that, she admired her. Genevieve had endured numerous hardships during her life, but she hadn't crumbled beneath them. She hadn't let the wicked rumours or the malicious whispers get under her skin. Instead, she had overcome them, smiling all the while. And some of you may not know, we have a new emote. We have the cheer emote. It just got dropped like a day or so ago. So have fun with it. I'm a very big fan. Letitia wondered if she could have done such a thing. She doubted it. Yes, you can make me spin and make me rave with the little light sticks. It's amazing. What else can I do? Who knows? What a dream. She was older than Genevieve, but she had not endured half so much. She was hopelessly weak, while Genevieve's will was as hard as iron. I am glad that you had a nice time with me. I had a nice time with you too. I really did like spending Christmas with you. And I liked being with you. I love you, Letty. She said it! She fucking said it. She said the L word. You know the word. Lesbians. No, she fucking said love. Oh my god, we did it. Another milestone out the gate. We're not even half an hour in stream and she's already winning us even more. She's knocking those milestones out the gate like nothing. They're in lesbians. Yes. I love you too. Genevieve giggled. You know what, Letty? What? She did. Letitia was so brave. Our girl is growing a bit of a backbone, and she's doing so good with it. It would be nice to go for another walk in the moors. I really am fond of them. Really? Titia frowned. I thought you would have wanted to keep your distance after everything that happened to your brother. If I kept my distance from everything that hurt me in the past, I would no longer have anywhere else to go. It's not like I can leave Hatton, not when my father has control of my bank accounts. And besides, Genevieve glanced back at the window, her fingers splayed across her pale cheek. I feel close to my brother when I'm on the moors. It's a connection, I suppose. His soul is still there. Not that I'm talking about his ghost, I mean I'm not balmy. It's something more intangible than that. Maybe I'm talking about his memory. I need to say the word balmy more. It's so fun. Balmy. What a fun word. It's hard to put into words, but it's comforting in a strange sort of way. I think I understand. You spent a lot of time there with him, didn't you? Genevieve nodded, while coiling a strand of red hair about one of her fingers. It's great writing, Wolfie. I'm a massive, massive fan of the way Ebihime writes her work. Shout out to Ebihime, the person to really, really light the spark of my visual novel appreciation. This is this is a perfect time to shout her out properly. Ebihime is the one who woke me up to the joys of what visual novels can do for real. She was my entry point, and she is still just as good as she always has been. She never misses. She has boys who love boys. She has girls who love girls. And sometimes she has heterosexuals even. Shocking, I know, but she does have some heterosexuals in there. And some of them aren't even romance. There's some that aren't even romance. Thank you for the hydrate. Hydra. Hydrate, Hydra. She even does the heterosexuals. She believes in the true equality of including everyone in there. It's beautiful. It's very controversial. It is immensely controversial. She's actually more known for being, she gets more traction with her lesbian works than with her boys' love, which makes her a bit annoyed. Because she wants equality in this life. So I say go out and read not just her girls, but her boys. Give her like unconditional love for all of them. Appreciate it all. It's all good. There's even some that aren't romance at all. She's just writing stories with some of them that don't have romance, and that's really cool too. Like The Mermaid of Zenoa, which is a fairly controversial one, but I like it a lot. It's not actually romantic. She does tackle a lot of like uncomfortable themes and concepts sometimes. Like sometimes she gets quite dark. So, viewer beware, you know. Viewer beware, you're in for a scare. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it, honestly. Oh my god, back to actually doing what I am supposed to be doing this stream, reading. I used to love playing in the moors. I'm too old to play now, of course, but all of my fondest memories took place out there. Some of my worst ones, too. That's how life is, though, I suppose. The moors are wild and untamed. In a sense, they're a little like me. I wonder if that's why I like them so much. Genevieve giggled once more, but her laughter was rueful now. Sometimes I resent them, though. I love the moors, but it feels like they keep me trapped in here. Trapped with father. Well, maybe I'm being silly. I don't think you're silly. You're very sweet, Letty. Genevieve was still trying to smile even now. But it was absolutely obvious the scars from her past had not faded. They still tormented her to this day. Perhaps they would never stop aching. The cook might have been afraid of imaginary ghosts, but this was nothing more than foolishness. Genevieve was the one haunted by proper spectres. Maybe we shouldn't go for a walk. When it gets this cold, the puddles start to freeze over. It can be dangerous. I wouldn't want you to get hurt. But I don't like to remain indoors either. I would like to go somewhere with you before the year ends. We could go on a trip. A trip? You mean like a holiday? Not quite like a holiday, no. There isn't really anywhere to go around here, and it is the middle of winter. But what about this? Genevieve sat up a little straighter in her chair, her eyes bright and alert. Why don't we go to York this Saturday? York? But that's so far away. It isn't, not really. It's only 20 miles or so. Didn't you make the journey yourself when you first came to Hatton? That is true, I suppose, but it took almost 4 hours. 4 hours is nothing if we set off early. We can have Gerard take us there in the carriage. Genevieve, I get, in this regard. 4 hours is nothing when you're travelling in certain areas. 4 hours when you live in the middle of nowhere is nothing if it means you're getting somewhere that actually has stuff. Like, it's just what it is. You get used to it. Do you think he would agree to that? The journey is a long one, and still seems very last minute. What if he refuses? I'd like to see him try. I am the daughter of the man who pays his wages, and his services have been severely underutilized as of late. We need to give him something to do to deserve his pay. Titi did not much like the idea of being so reliant on Gerard Lockett, but she did like the idea of exploring York with Genevieve. She liked it very much, in fact. She enjoyed whiling away her time with Genevieve and Hatton, but the house often felt stifling despite being so large. Since she had arrived in Hatton, Letty had not ventured much further than the ramshackle village of Beeston. Would it be nice to go to a city for a change? Part of Letty felt homesick for London, and what little she had glimpsed of York seemed familiar enough. The houses were bigger there, the streets larger, and there seemed so much more to do there. York was not London, but it was close enough, and for the present, Letty supposed it would do. Be more than enough, in fact, if she could traverse its streets with Genevieve. Very well, then. If you want us to go on a trip, then we can. I shall look forward to it. Me too. Oh, I can hardly wait. Genevieve rose to her feet, smiling sincerely, and took Letty's hands with her own. I have to say, one thing I will be looking forward to with the visual novel finishing at some point is I won't have to say Letitia ever again. It is such a difficult name to say out loud. I feel like I'm tripping every time I say it. Even if I say it perfectly right, I feel like I'm messing up. It's been an age since I last went to York. Their sort of shops are not comparable to London's, but they are better than Beeston's. I need to buy some new winter dresses and maybe a new coat. And oh, Letty. Letty is much nicer to say, I must say. It's much easier. Genevieve squeezed Letitia's fingers, her eyes brimful with excitement. We shall have so much fun. We can eat at a nice restaurant and go shopping and walk through the parks. We'll be just like a proper couple. A couple? Letitia's face turned beet red at this, and overcome, she glanced away. Yes, it's Letitia. It's Letitia. It makes you stumble. They might be expecting a bit too much. Why should you say that? We're a couple, aren't we? You love me and I love you, and our feelings for one another are just as real as any man's would be for any woman. Well, yes, I suppose you're right. In the face of Genevieve's passion, Letitia was forced to relent. She smiled, though shyly, and glanced back at Genevieve from beneath her eyelashes. Oh, pasta checking me. Oh. The problem, Jaws, is that I need to change my mic so I can't actually stay in the nice posture for very long. It's actually like it sucks where it is right now. I need to change it, so I do need to lean forward to use it properly. So I only get to like stretch a little bit, and then I go right back to shrimping. She smiled though shyly and glanced back at Genevieve from beneath her eyelashes. I appreciate the stretch at the very least. It's nice to see you. We might not be a conventional couple, but my love for you is real. I swear it on my mother's life. And I swear on my mother's life too. I love you, Letty. Genevieve laughed. This will be so much fun. I shall choose one of my fanciest dresses to wear for our trip, just for your sake. I'm sure I'll look lovely. Yes, they told each other they loved each other, and not even a half an hour in they did that. Even with all my prattling about things. Yes, we do believe something horrid is about to happen. It's been too nice. I feel like the climax of the story is just about here. You know? I don't know if we'll meet at set today, but if not, we'll definitely see it next time. You always look lovely, Jenny. I mean, it is a classic gothic novel. Not gothic as in the fashion, but as in the writing style. It is what it's pulling from. So I'm kind of expecting something horrendous to happen to everyone. At least a few people, you know? Oh, you. They're going on a trip? They're having a night out? Well, not a night out. They're having a day out in the city. Genevieve batted at Letty playfully, as a cat might. You know all the right things to say to make a girl blush. Sometimes I think you're wasted as a woman. I know I could never love a man half so much as I love you, though. Thank you for agreeing with this, Letty. I know I can be impulsive, but I think we will have a grand time. I think so, too, Letizia said, and for once, she was not agreeing because it was the polite thing to do. She truly, sincerely meant it. It's also Ebihime, and there's the visual novels that she's written that end beautifully and like with joy. I can count on one hand. You know, it's just part of her and what she does, which is part of the reason I love her, obviously. A couple of days passed without incident, and soon the day of Letitia's trip to York arrived. Letitia and Genevieve had agreed the eve before that they would depart at 7 o'clock. Fluck was on their side. They would arrive at Yorkshire a little before 11, which would give them many hours to enjoy one another's company. Letitia was so excited, she barely slept the night before. When she did arise, it was at 5 o'clock, when the sky was still inky black. Letitia turned over, attempting to go back to sleep, but she could not. This was to be her very first trip alone with Genevieve, and she could scarcely wait for it. Eagerly, Letitia rose from her bed. She turned on the gas lamp by her bedside table, then turned to her wardrobe. Letitia spent a good half hour sorting through her clothes, unsure of what to wear. She only had a handful of dresses and blouses and skirts, but they were all despairingly dull. Her limited wardrobe was comprised of whites, creams, and lifeless greys. There was no splashes of colour, no ruby reds or sapphire blues. Letitia's meagre collection of clothes were as safe and predictable as could be. Letty had brought them all in London, all the while hoping such plain garments might render her invisible to the passing public. Letty had never much liked standing out. Neither had she been one to fuss over her appearance. She could not see the point of it, and she knew herself to be unremarkable. Letitia's square jaw and brown eyes were hardly liable to inspire poetry in the hearts of young romantics. There seemed little point, therefore, in draping her body with fine fabrics. Neither did Letty have the money for such garments, nor a reason to wear them. She was only a governess. Today, however, Letty did not want to look like a governess. She wanted to look special. She did not want to show Genevieve up. It would have been nice, Letty mused, if she could have looked at least halfway pretty for once. But her clothes did not inspire much confidence. Chat? This is the behaviour I don't appreciate. We don't be doing the self-deprecating in my chat. We don't do that. If I see any of you being self-deprecating, it's on sight. I don't be putting up with that shit. It's a toxin to the soul. It's a poison to the heart. It's not good. I know it's a hard habit to break, but we won't do... No, we don't do that. After much dithering, Letty eventually settled upon the same plain attire she always wore. None of her other skirts or shirts, nor any of her dresses, seemed to suit her. Letty surveyed herself in the mirror anxiously. I'm glad to hear that, Wolfie. I'm glad my ego has been rubbing off on you, and that self-deprecating has been... the self-deprecation has been leaving your soul, so to say. That's good to hear. I'm very glad. I know it's... And God, it is so common for people to fall into that trap. And it's incredibly common. And everyone will be like, that's just the way it is. I see no reason to fall to that status quo. I disagree with a lot of status quo, to be fair. This particular one, I hold a great anger for. The fact that our society allows so much kindness for people to be self-deprecating of themselves and think like, that's just the way it is. It's frustrating. People kill their spirit by doing that, and it's like, why would we want a society that does that to each other? It's horrific. Exactly. Just because it's the way it is doesn't mean it should be, nor that it has to be. Exactly. 100% right. I will get on my soapbox about whatever I please, and this is one of them. This is one of these moments. Now, I'm not saying that speaking on your own mental health struggles isn't something you shouldn't do. It's important to be open and honest about how you're doing with people. Instead of saying, I suck, or I'm ugly, tell people that you feel like you aren't pretty instead. Say the feel word, and then, yes, Wolfie. If you try to be kind to others, you shouldn't exclude yourself from that. Exactly. If you say that you feel you are something, people will find it'll be easier for someone to respond. First of all, you aren't making like a strict statement. With a strict statement of yourself saying, I am ugly, like a matter of fact thing. No one can they can't continue the conversation. First of all, they can't keep talking. There's nothing they can do with that. They want to refute it, but you're so certain that they feel they've got no opening. If you say, I feel like I'm not really attractive, if you say that, they'll be like, well, no. It gives them, it's a shakier statement. You have less solid footing in those words. And they can come in and be like, well, no, you have beautiful hair. Your hands are lovely. Things like that. They can come up with many things. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing to hear that from other people as well as just from your own spirit. I've gone on for a bit long. We were supposed to be reading a visual novel. But Letty always brings that anger out in me because she's just... You're pretty. You're pretty. You're a kind woman. There's no reason for you to see yourself this way except for just the fact that people have been... It's hard not to compare yourself to others, and I suspect that's what she does. Letty surveyed herself in the mirror anxiously, turning this way and that. The hem of her skirt swished in a manner which could not be called flattering, and she sighed. I'm hopeless. Letty looked at her expression in the mirror. Her expression was sullen, her brow harrowed. She had been so excited for last night. Now she felt positively fearful. She did not want Genevieve to laugh at her. Exactly, Wolf. She's gorgeous. She's the love of a gorgeous woman. And if someone loves you so fiercely like that, there's clearly something lovable, you know? There is lovable parts of every single person out there. Maybe not Trump, but this ain't about him. This ain't about that piece of shit. There are lovable parts of every person in the world. As long as you face the world with kindness, you will find kindness in it. I'm spouting bunch of bullshit, unfounded claims, but it's what I believe. I know you say that those aren't people, Wolfie, but I think Trump is like a symptom. You know? Well, the fact that we have a society that created him is more reason for us to recognize that he's a person, and that we as a society allowed someone like him to accumulate power and to get away without being checked and having consequences. This is a reflection of the world we have built. I'm going too far. I'm going way off base. We're reading a visual novel. What does she see in me anyway? Letty stares at her reflection as though searching for an answer. Naturally, none was forthcoming. You're being silly. You need to stop doubting yourself. Smile, Letitia. Letitia brought her fingers to her lips and tugged, pulling them into a grim facsimile of a smile. It wasn't very convincing, but Letitia supposed it would have to do. We should focus on the lesbians, yes. She did not want to spoil the day. Her attire might have been gloomy, that did not mean she had to be gloomy. Somewhat cheered, Letitia turned from the mirror. Her bedroom was still bathed in shadows, the single gas lamp being too weak to disperse them. According to the clock upon her wall, it was 1/2 the hour. She had wasted 30 minutes trying on and discarding the various items in her wardrobe. But she still had more time to spare. What would she do? Perhaps she could settle down with the hefty volume of Shakespeare that Arthur had brought her. Before Letitia could retrieve said book, she was interrupted by a rapping of knuckles upon her door. Somebody was there. Letitia? Oh, Letitia, I'm sorry to bother you at such a time, but this... Oh! I've done it again. I've pressed buttons. But it's urgent. A soft, slightly frenzied voice emanated from the other side of the door. Letitia knew who it was, of course, without seeing their face. Diana? Oh, so you are awake. There was a heavy sigh of relief. Yes, it's me. I'm sorry if I woke you. May I come in? It is very early, but... Oh, what am I saying? Of course you can come in. Please do. You don't mind? It is a bit unusual, I admit, but I can hardly leave you standing outside. We are friends, after all. Friends? Yes, I suppose we are. Then if you're certain you don't mind... Letitia heard Dinah swallow. Thank you. There was a click, and the door swung open. There Dinah stood in the hallway, which was pitch as black as pitch. An iron candle holder clutched in her right hand. The flickering candlelight cast Dinah's face in sharp relief. Her skin was white as milk, as it had been when Dinah had first told Letitia of the abuse she had endured by Arthur's hands. There were dark bruises beneath her eyes, as though she had not slept, and though she was attired in her maid's regalia, her skirt was crumpled and her collar was crooked. Dinah did not simply appear to be unwell like one suffering from a common cold. Instead, she looked awful. Dinah. Letitia felt her heart drop inside her chest. There could have been only one reason why Dinah had sought her out at such an hour. It was obvious what the problem was even before she opened her mouth, but still Letitia knew she had to ask. What happened? It wasn't Arthur, was it? Dinah did not respond, but she did not need to. The way her expression warped told Letitia all she needed to know. Oh, Dinah. Letitia took a step forth, her boring black skirt swaying as she did so. Reaching out, she plucked the candle holder from Dinah's hand. She was trembling so badly, Letitia feared she might drop it and set it to one side. Then she took Dinah's hands in her own and looked into her eyes. When did this happen? Was it recent? It was yesterday evening. Yesterday? Dinah nodded shakily. Her eyes were half-lidded, cloudy with tears, and she could not bring herself to look at Letty. I hoped when it happened last time that there would be an end, that would be an end to this sordid affair. I thought maybe it was a moment of madness on the master's part. I wanted to believe. Dinah sniffed. When I was given Christmas off, I was so very happy. I was able to go home and see my family. We all celebrated together. I so loved seeing my mother and father and siblings again, but then, I was so stupid. I was told to take the master his tea last night and to stoke his fireplace. Apparently he had requested me by name. There was nothing I could do but comply, though I was fearful of what might happen. I was trembling so badly as I walked up the stairs, I spilled half the tea. When I finally arrived at his study, I was too fearful to knock on the door. I stood there for 5 minutes, dithering. But I was afraid his tea would get cold. What little of it was still left in the cup, and they would scold me for my clumsiness. I knew that I had no choice, so I steeled my nerves. I tried to tell myself everything would be all right, despite knowing this to be a lie. There was nothing else I could tell myself. I knocked on the door, and the master bade me entry. I stepped inside, and then... Here, Dinah's voice trailed off. She squeezed her eyes shut, her breath hitching in her chest, while tears began to bead like pearls upon her lashes. It was just like last time. There was nothing I could do. He's much stronger than he looks and was so insistent, and I... Dinah, oh, Dinah, shh, it's all right. Even as the teacher tried to comfort Dinah, she was struck by how empty and insincere her words sounded. Of course it was not all right. How could it be after all which had occurred? Dinah had tried to put the past behind her. She had continued to work in Hatton, under Arthur's watchful eye, fearfully believing the best in him, but once more he had betrayed her. He had used her for his own gain, and then he had tossed her aside. Letty could hardly believe that she had willingly spent Christmas in the company of such a man. They had sat at the same table, eaten the same food, and Arthur had even given her a present. At the time, Letty had thought Arthur uncommonly generous. He really had seemed like a perfect gentleman. Arthur's smile had not wavered throughout the celebrations, even as Genevieve and Miss Ree argued. Now, however, Letty could see that had been nothing more than a front. All the while, throughout the festivities, Arthur had been thinking of Dinah and divesting her of her clothes, and... How could he do that to you? How could he? He did it quite easily. Didn't put up much of a fight. I should have tried to resist, but I was too scared. You shouldn't blame yourself for that. He's the one at fault. He pretends to be respectable, but he's rotten through and through. Letty grit her teeth together. Waves of red-hot anger washed over her like waves. She felt angry, both on Dinah's behalf and herself for being so gullible. Okay, that was a very silly line. I suspect there's a typo going on there. I suspect that there's a typo. And that was meant to look somewhere else. I suspect. She had known what Arthur Langley was capable of. Why then had she been so quick to exonerate him? Yeah, it was likely an editing mistake. That seems just much too obvious to miss for it to be just like how it was meant to be written, you know? Was one gift really all it took to make her forget the misery that man had inflicted upon her dear friend? Letty had let Arthur's charm sway her, but now she meant to amend that. This was to be her apology to Dinah for having the nerve to accept a Christmas present from her abuser. Come with me, Dinah. I can't fix what has already happened, but I can try to offer you some solace. Letty picked up the candle from the table, then took Dinah's wrist in her hand. Exiting her bedroom, she strode purposefully along the darkened hallway. Dinah trailed behind her like a wan little ghost. What do you mean, Letitia? Dinah's footsteps were slow and faltering. She stared at Letitia's back, her eyes vast, beneath her cacophony of disturbed blonde locks. Where are we going? The kitchen. I stole some plants and herbs stowed away for times like this. Oh. Dinah's eyes widened in surprise. You're going to make me some more tea? That was the general idea, yes. It is best to handle these matters quickly before things get out of hand. Right, of course. Dinah rested a hand, the one which Letitia was not grasping, against her stomach. Thank you, Letitia. You are a true friend. I appreciate it a good deal. But is this really all right? It is so early. The cook won't be awake yet. Good. Then I can brew your tea unmolested. But if she finds out we've been in the kitchen without her permission... She won't. And even if she does, it's hardly the end of the world. I will tell her I woke during the night and wanted something warm to drink. That is not a crime. It might not be in British law, but the cook is very protective of her kitchen. Yeah, what a choice of words, Letty. Goodness. Letty trips over herself quite a bit, I will say. It's not uncommon. It's very on brand for her and her messy way of talking. It's very funny in a way. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Letitia turned, the candlelight flickering, and gave Dinah a small smile. No matter what happens, I shall look out for you. Oh my. How gallant. An effusive blush rose to Dinah's pale cheeks. You're just like a knight. No, I'm not. I'm a weak, cowardly woman, but I'm doing my best to become stronger. If Letitia wanted to be at peace in a world which frowned upon women such as herself, she knew that she had to learn how to be more fearless. She would never be able to feel at peace, even if Genevieve did love her, if she could not accept her love. Letitia wanted to change desperately, and in order to do that, she knew she would have to be brave. Letitia and Dinah made their way to the kitchen without incident. It was airy in the dark, and the iron utensils looked oddly like weapons of torture in the night. Letitia shuddered. At least the kitchen was empty. That was something to be thankful for, though Letitia knew it would not remain that way for long. The cook typically rose at 6 o'clock, though sometimes it was earlier, to prepare breakfast. We don't have much time. I must get to work. Letitia set the candle upon the side, then set about her task in a hurry. She placed a kettle full of water on the stove, and while it was boiling, she began to chop and slice the leftover herbs she had stashed away for such an occasion. Letitia moved quickly, anxious lest she be discovered by the cook. She poured the herbs and the hot water into a cup and stirred it, then added the wild carrot seeds. As wild carrot was known for its bitter taste, Letitia also added a spoonful of honey to the herbal mixture. She stirred the contents of the cup with a spoon, then handed it to Dinah. Here you are. You should drink it all up, but do be careful. It's hot. Dinah brought the cup to her lips and blew. The minutiae of the tea shifted, and ripples began to spread across its surface. She examined her reflection for a few moments, as though pondering. And then, after screwing her eyes shut, she began to drink. Tea must have been hotter than she had anticipated, because Dinah winced, but she did not set the cup down. She drank instead, like a woman possessed, her throat convulsing until all the tea was gone. When Dinah set the cup back on the counter, it was empty, save for a few damp cuttings of rosemary. There now. That should do it. Letitia nodded her head approvingly, as though Dinah had successfully conjugated a French verb, and picked the cup up. She was washed away all the incriminating traces of the tincture she had brewed in the sink, until the ceramic interior of the cup shone. Then she placed the cup back in the cupboard from where she had pilfered it. How do you feel, Diana? Letty cast her friend an anxious glance. You don't feel sick, do you? No, I'm fine. I feel about the same as I did before, though my tongue does feel a little numb. Diana smiled bashfully. tea was quite hot. Well, I did warn you, Letty tutted. The water had only just been brought to boil. You should have known it would be hot. I know, I'm sorry. I thought I'd best drink it quickly in case we were caught. Speaking of which, Dinah glanced at the doorway, her motions anxious and twitchy like a mouse's. We should probably go. Yes, I think you might be right about that. Letty retrieved the candle from the table and padded back upstairs. Dinah at her heels. The floorboards creaked beneath her soles, and Letty paused. But nobody stirred. Hatton Manor was as quiet as a crypt. It was coming up to 6 o'clock, but the whole house was still, its residents enchanted by the spell of deep sleep. Letty could picture the cook lying in her bed, arms red as ham. Hams, her hagstone hanging off her bedpost for supposed protection. She would have no idea what had occurred inside her precious kitchen this morning, and with a little luck, it would remain that way. Genevieve, too, would be curled up beneath her blankets. Her fiery locks would be curled across her pillow, eyes shut and her lips pursed like a princess's. Was she dreaming about her upcoming trip to York with Letitia? Perhaps she was just as excited as Letitia was. Some of Letitia's prior enthusiasm had begun to fade in the wake of Dinah's predicament, but she was sure she would feel better upon seeing Genevieve. That was what Letitia hoped, in any event. Callous thoughts, though it may have sounded, Letitia did not want Dinah's misfortune spoiling the day. Not when she'd been anticipating it so eagerly. So, Letitia looked at Dinah once the pair had returned to her bedroom. She was not sure how to cast Dinah out. Neither did she think it would be polite to do so. If Dinah wanted her aid, Letitia would have liked to be there to provide it for her. She was anxious, however, about her upcoming plans with Genevieve. Do you think you'll be able to return to your own quarters now? You look like you could use some sleep. Ah, yes. Sleep. Dinah spoke vaguely, as though sleep were a foreign concept to her, and judging by the bruise-like shadows beneath her eyes, might well have been. I know I should rest, but I don't know if I can. Might it be possible, I fear, with all these thoughts in my head? I understand that, but... Letty's eyes darted to the clock upon her wall. There was still plenty of time until she was supposed to leave for York, but she felt anxious nonetheless. Letty had been sympathetic at Dinah at first. Indeed, she still was. But she was fast beginning to outstay her welcome. How could she send her away without seeming too heartless? Perhaps, if she appealed to Dinah's common sense, then... If the other maids noticed that you've gone missing, they might get suspicious. You wouldn't want them to start gossiping, would you? They gossip enough as it is. They all think I'm funny on account of the way I speak. They say I have airs and graces. Dinah sighed. She scuffed at the floor with the tip of her foot, her eyes downcast. You're not trying to get rid of me, are you? What? Letty took a step back. She knew herself to be a poor actress, but she had not known she was quite that transparent. The reproachful look on Dinah's face made her feel guilty, and this guilt, as it so commonly does, soon turned to self-righteous indignation. I'm not trying to get rid of you. Of course I'm not. I care about you. I made you that tincture. Indeed you did. It was kind of you. You needn't have gone out of your way, really. But I wanted to. I had enough leftovers, and I would hate to see you suffer. You're my friend, Dinah. I would never try to send you away when you're in need. It's just... Do you have plans? Am I getting in the way? That is... Well... Letty let her head hang. Her teeth worried her lower lip. All of a sudden, she felt anxious, though she could not say why. Perhaps it was something about Dinah's eyes. She had thought this when first she had met Dinah, but they really were piercing. It felt as though they could see right through her. Letty winced. Why was she trying to keep her excursion with Genevieve a secret? Everybody in Hatton Manor would know soon enough. There was precious little else for the maids to talk about, other than Arthur's latest conquest, apparently. Logically, Letty knew she had no reason to feel so guilty. She was not doing anything wrong. Governesses often went out with their pupils. She had done much the same with Clara back in London. This trip to York was not for the sake of bettering Genevieve's education, but it was all above board. Arthur himself had approved of it. Looking up at her friend, Letty said slowly, hesitantly, I am going out later, yes. I have arranged a trip with Genevieve. We will be spending the day in York. York? But that is several hours away. You would have to set off very early. We are leaving at 7, actually. 7? Dinah turned to look at the clock. It was now 15 minutes past 6. Oh dear, you don't have much time left. Dinah bowed her head in contrition. I apologize for taking up so very much of your time, and so early in the morning, too. I should have been more considerate. If I had known you were going out, then... It's fine. You had no way of knowing. But of course you're only upset. I think you are the one who was upset more than I. You are right to come to me for help. Like I said, it is better to take care of these things quickly. I hope that the lawnmower isn't being picked up by the mic. It's quite noisy. Trust him to do it during stream instead of like in the morning. It's 2 p.m. He had all morning to mow the lawn. And I don't know what he was doing. I'm just going to shuffle a bit. Just shuffling a little bit. It's not bad? Okay. Yeah, it's a little frustrating for me because I don't know how much gets picked up. I suppose you are right, though I feel awful about it. I'd hate to come between you and Genevieve. I know how well you get on. You do? Letty frowned. She could not remember discussing her relationship with Genevieve to Dinah, or indeed anyone, in any great detail. Dinah is very good at tugging at the heartstrings. You will just have to cope with this, Wolfie. How did you come to that conclusion? I just assumed. You always look so happy when you speak of her. Your eyes light up and you smile in a manner that is most unlike you. How is smiling unlike me? You don't do it very often. You look so morose most of the time. Dinah toyed with her sleeves. That was just an observation, though. I don't mean to be rude, and for all I know, I might be wrong. Forgive me if I've said anything foolish. I just presumed that the two of you were friends. We are hardly that. I am Genevieve's governess. Maybe so. But I am only a maid, and you are still my friend. I fail to see why our status is ought to interfere with whether or not we like one another. Goodness, he really had all morning to do the lawn mowing. I'm putting the fear in Wolfie. Putting the fear in you. Oh, how amusing. I love when games put the fear in my chat. Very fun. Though Dinah spoke nervous and earnestly, the naivety in her tone rendered her words childlike and insubstantial. Letty knew that Dinah meant well, but she doubted many people would agree with her words. It would be nice if our social statuses were immaterial, like you have suggested. But people can be very rigid about these things. Miss Rue would be appalled if she knew that I was more to Genevieve than a teacher. Does that mean you are more to Miss Langley than that, then? Dinah's grey eyes were penetrating, and once more, Letty was bidden to look away. She bit her lip. This conversation was starting to delve into uncomfortable territory. Letty did not want to risk incriminating herself. My feelings for Genevieve are immaterial. It does not do to dwell on them. Let's drop the subject. All right. Very well then. I can take a hint. But... This is a delicate subject. I was wondering if I should tell you or not. I have no desire to worry you, but knowing how close you are to Miss Langley, I cannot keep quiet about it. It is possible I may have misheard or misunderstood, but it has been weighing on my mind, and well... When I was with the master last night in his study, he said a good number of things to me. They were very strange things, too, as he was, touching me. I swear I heard him say a woman's name, but it was not my name. Though he was looking at me, he was not seeing me. I think he wanted to pretend I was somebody else. The name that he called out, it's strange, but... Dinah's fingers clasped the hem of her skirt, so the black and white fabric crumpled about them. I think he was calling for Genevieve. Oh, chat. The fears, they're mounting. The fears are mounting. The terror. I shouldn't giggle about this. This is serious. And yes, I giggle. Letty carried Dinah's words around with her like a millstone for the rest of that morning. She thought of them while she was examining her reflection by the mirror, and she thought of them as she adjusted her hair, and she thought of them when an excitable Genevieve came knocking on her door. Letty! Oh, Letty, it's time to go. The carriage is all prepared. Are you ready? Look at Genevieve's going out outfit. Look how pretty she is. Look at our Genevieve, guys. Ignore everything that just happened. Look at Genevieve. And her charming little outfit. Doesn't she look wonderful in blue? Oh, I fear my model is having a moment. Yeah, it's really having a moment. Oh, and we're back! Incredible. Technology is amazing, and it always works. Yes. Observe the lesbian in the blue dress and forget everything that just happened. It's fine. Letty, oh Letty, it's time to go! The carriage is all prepared, are you ready? Genevieve had obviously made an effort with her appearance, for she looked even more beautiful than usual, if such a thing were possible. Her hair hung freely about her shoulders, and atop her head she wore a wide-brimmed hat decorated with flowers. Her dress was a turquoise colour cinched in the waist. Letty had never seen Genevieve in that dress before. It made her flushed skin look full of life, her eyes bright and mischievous. But Letty could not smile as Genevieve did, even upon seeing her. Her heart was heavy and leaden, and looking at her hurt. I am as ready as I shall ever be, I suppose. Good. Then let us depart. Genevieve wound her arm through the crook of Letitia's and led her along through the hallway. She moved with nimble steps like a dancer, so light and buoyant she was practically skipping. If Miss Ree had been there, she would have surely scolded Genevieve for her conduct, but Miss Ree, Letty supposed, scolded Genevieve for everything. Two descended the staircase and cut through the entrance hall. The sun had only just risen and it could scarcely illuminate the teak floorboards, or the red carpet that was draped across it. Letty had thought Hatton's entrance hall depressing when first she'd arrived there, luggage in hand, and her opinions had not much changed over the months. It was just as dismal and unwelcoming now as it had been then. In fact, perhaps it was even more so now she knew the secrets that dwelt within Hatton's walls. Genevieve fortunately did not seem to notice Letitia's reticence. She was still pulling her along as a child might with a wooden toy, babbling all the while. The pair left the mansion, Genevieve flinging the doors open as she went, and approached the waiting carriage. Gerard was there, dressed in his coachman's livery. He smiled when he saw the ladies approach and doffed his cap. "Morning, Miss Langley, Miss Reed. Lovely weather we've been having, ain't it?" "Lovely indeed. Let us hope it does not snow on the way back." Gerard opened the door of the carriage and offered Genevieve a hand. In response, she gave him a withering look and rolled her eyes. "You don't need to fuss, Gerard. I'm not a little girl. I can't get into this carriage by myself without your aid." "Oh, la-dee-da. Get you." Gerard did not seem upset at all by Genevieve's lack of gratitude. Instead, he laughed. Maybe he was unused to her uneven temper. Though Letty had no fond feelings for Gerard Lockett, part of her wished she could take life that lightly. And perhaps she would not worry as much as she did. "I'm sorry for embarrassing thou in front of thy governess, little missy. But thou forgets, I've worked here since you was this big." Gerard gestured with his hand. "Thou might be a grown lady now with airs and graces befitting of a princess, but thou'll always be a naughty little girl to me." "Believe me, I can be much naughtier." Genevieve stuck out her tongue, and Gerard laughed. "I believe it. Now climb aboard, you saucy baggage." Gerard's lovely. I like Gerard a lot. He's so fun. Genevieve clambered into the carriage defiantly without Gerard's aid. Letty followed behind her and took a seat, facing her impetuous mistress. "It is wild. Your saucy baggage is so fun." "Sit tight, ladies. I'll get that to York faster than blinking, else my name's not Gerard Lockett." "Gerard Lockett doesn't sound like a real name. You could be an actor with a fancy name like that." "Why, thank you, miss. I do assure you, though, I am the genuine article. There's nothing fake about me. I'm so honest I would make a terrible actor." Humming to himself, Gerard slammed the door of the carriage shut. Then he clambered into the driver's seat and took his horse's reins between his gloved hands. "Giddy up, you old beasts. Let's not keep Miss High and Mighty waiting." There was the crack of a whip, and then the wheels of the carriage began to turn. The vehicle rumbled, listing lightly to one side, and soon it was off. The rhythmic clip-clopping of horses' hooves filled the air, mingled with the rumble of the wheels against the scrubby marshland. Letty glanced out the window all the while, staring at the countryside as it passed her by. Though she should have been excited about this journey, her heart felt heavy. Still, she could not stop thinking about what Dinah had told her. What if it was true? What if? "Oh, this will be so much fun!" Genevieve squirmed in her seat, her face glowing with delight. "It has been such a long time since I last went out, but oh, Letty!" "What?" "I didn't have a chance to get a good look at your dress. I was in such a hurry. What must wonder now, though, what you were thinking. Surely you could have made a bit more of an effort." Genevieve's nose wrinkled. "Why are you wearing the same blouse and skirt you do in the schoolroom? We're supposed to be going on a jaunt together, you and I." "Well, Letty flinched. She was sure Genevieve did not mean to be cruel, but it still stung. Genevieve was mostly sweet, but she could be awfully thoughtless at times. "I did make an effort, it's just I don't have many nice clothes. I tried out most of my wardrobe and this was the best thing I could find. That drab old attire. I know you favour it, Letty, but really I wouldn't use it as a tablecloth. A pauper could do better." A pauper? Letty fingered the coarse fabric of her skirt hesitantly. I don't think it is that bad. I did buy it in London. The tailors in London must be losing their touch. Either that or you could not pick out a nice skirt if your life depended on it. Genevieve sniffed, then turned up her nose. No, this will never do. We must correct this as soon as possible. And how do you propose we do that? With money, of course. There is nothing it cannot buy. I was planning to purchase a few bits and pieces for myself, but I'm sure the budget can stretch to buying you a nice dress or two. Oh no. Letty shook her head. You needn't buy me things, Genevieve, or I'd feel too guilty. But I want to buy you things. You're my friend. And besides, you made me those charming gloves for my birthday. That's different. The material wasn't all that expensive. That was something of a white lie. The material had been on the pricey side. Letty was certain Genevieve, however, could have brought the contents of Walter's shop twice over had she been inclined. Genevieve really was cut from different cloth than Letty. Besides, those gloves were a gift. Your aunt aren't under any obligation to return the favour. Now, Letty, you're trying to tell me what to do? What? No, I just... Good. I'm glad you're not, because you should know already that I hate it when people try to order me around. Now I'm going to buy you a new dress, and that's final. If you're worried about the money, you needn't be. My father gives me an allowance, but I've had precious little to spend it on these past few months. I haven't had a chance. I've been stuck inside Hatton, all shackled away like a nun. And more than enough funds to look after you, Letty. You simply must get a new dress. Maybe a hat too. New shoes wouldn't go amiss either. Genevieve's eyes raked up and down Letitia's body. To Letty it felt as though the young mistress was cataloguing every one of her fashion faux pas inside her head. Felt a bit like being examined beneath a magnifying glass. Letty blushed, ashamed of herself, and dipped her head. Well, if you really want to buy me things, I suppose you can. It is your money, after all. That's right. Indeed it is. I knew you'd understand. I still think it is a waste, though. Hardly. You are my friend, and I want you to look pretty. Chance would be a fine thing. I wouldn't look pretty even if you decked me out in the latest styles from Europe. I'm a lost cause. No, you're not. Don't say that, Letty. I wouldn't love you so if you were as hopeless as you think you are. You just need to smile more. Then you would be beautiful. Genevieve took the corners of Letitia's mouth, as Letty had done herself that morning, and pushed them upwards into a smile. There, that's much better. I am curious, though. Genevieve let her arms drop to her sides and examined Letty, who looked no longer that of a critical fashionista. Instead, she seemed concerned. Aren't you looking forward to this trip? Yes, of course I am. Why do you ask? Well, it's just... You don't seem very happy. I don't? No, I'm worried. You've been acting oddly all morning. Is there something on your mind? Well... Letty let her voice trail off, quite stuck for words. She had no idea what she was supposed to say to that. Even now, while she was being rocked by the regular motions of the carriage, she could not get Dinah's words from her head. They had lodged there and become stuck. Like the magpie which had once fallen down the chimney of her father's shop. I love Jenny. We all love Jenny, chat. Shoutouts to Jenny for being so fucking cool. And gorgeous and amazing and fantastic and perfect. Shoutouts to Jenny herself for being the goat. Never thought I'd use that word. Goodness, I feel too old to say that. It's the red hair? You're totally right. It's why we have so much in common, me and Jenny. It's our hair. It's the hair. It's the hair, 100%. If it had been anybody other than Dinah who had told her such a thing, Letty would have dismissed it offhand as more malicious gossip. There was no reason why Dinah would lie to her, though. She was one of Letitia's only friends. Dinah must have been telling the truth, or at the very least, what she perceived to be the truth. Alas, the implications behind this truth were so awful, Letty did not want to process it. She couldn't bear to think about it, which, of course, made her think of it all the more. Red-haired lesbians are just more awesome than other people. I mean, you're right. You're right, though, is the thing. Red-headed lesbians, they have this power to them that we just... It just exudes charm and power, you know? Bad bitches do it differently, as they say. Letty looked down at her fingers, which were threaded on her lap. The carriage continued to rock her to and fro, so her body swayed. Dimly, she could hear the wind running through the trees. The horses' hooves clacked against the ground, and there was the crack of a whip. Letty shuddered. Letty? Genevieve leant forward on her seat. She reached out, her full skirt shifting about her thighs, and took Letitia's hand in hers. Are you all right? You look very peaky. I am fine. I will be fine at least. Letitia's voice dropped to a whisper. I think I need to get out of here. Out of Hatton? It's claustrophobic. Sometimes I feel like it gets inside my head. I start thinking things, all sorts of things. I fear my imagination is getting the better of me. Oh, I must sound so silly. Genevieve surveyed Letty in silence for a few moments. Her eyes softened, and then she sighed. I don't think you're silly. You don't? No, I can't say much about your fashion sense, but I think you're very smart regardless. You even read Shakespeare, for goodness sake. I could never do that. Reading books doesn't make one smart, and Shakespeare's plays are meant to be watched, not read. You're still smarter than I am. You're very intelligent, in fact, and I know how you feel. I like the moors a lot, but I find Hatton itself to be horribly stifling. Maybe it's because of all the unpleasant memories I've associated with it. It feels like I can never escape my thoughts, regardless of where I go. I don't like admitting to my weaknesses, but... Gently, Genevieve smiled. I'll be glad to be free of Hatton, too. Let's go, new CG! Letty is wearing something that's actually interesting. Dang, Nikki, your bobbies. Right? She just needed to wear something interesting. I told you. Genevieve knows what's up. With the hair down, yes. It takes age. It relaxes her so amazingly. Oh, Letty, that dress looks simply stunning on you. Do you really think so? Letty surveyed her reflection in the shop mirror hesitantly, her hands awkwardly resting atop her clavicle. She had been in York with Genevieve for a handful of hours, and they had spent much of this time perusing shops along the high street. Yellow is a great colour on her, actually. Like, she looks really good in yellow. Well, perusing was the polite parlance, but in actuality Genevieve was a touch more forceful than that. Eager as always when the topic of fashion arose, the young madam had dragged Letty bodily into 5 boutiques. Or perhaps it was 6. It brightens her up immensely. It does! She looks like she brings to mind a dandelion. I mean, of course, there's also the dang Nikki your bobbies about it all, but she just looks so alive. Letty was unsure of how many shops exactly she had been in. It was difficult to keep track when they were all so similar. After a while, they all began to blur into one. Genevieve had brought several items of clothing already, which Letty had offered to carry, but Letty herself had not purchased anything. The dresses on display which Genevieve coveted were all extravagant. Yes, a little splash of red, so it's not just one colour going on, not with one bright colour, it's just, very fantastic. We're all extravagant, not to mention expensive. Genevieve had badgered Letty to try on this or that, or maybe even this. Letty, however, had been unable to imagine herself wearing red velvet or royal purple. I think my plain blouses and skirts might suit me best of all. I would hate to draw any attention to myself. Letty had demurred, her hands folded primly at her front, an objection Genevieve had soon dismissed. Nonsense, Letty. Every woman likes standing out. Then I mustn't be a real woman, because I don't. You only think that because you're not used to it. Why, you've never before tried it. Why wouldn't you want to look beautiful? If it was possible, I wouldn't reject the idea. Pig's ear cannot be made into a purse, though. Don't be daft. You're no pig. You just need to find the right garment. Something like this, perhaps? And so it was that Letitia, despite her protests, was petitioning into trying on a dress in one such shop that she would otherwise have overlooked. The dress was charming enough, Letitia supposed. It was flashier than anything she would have not worn normally, but perhaps that was to be expected, given Genevieve had been the one to select it. Genevieve does like the low necklines on her own dresses, so I'm not super surprised. That is, like, out of the dresses she generally wears, she seems to go for those. The colour, too, was quite unlike Letitia's uninspired wardrobe of beige and greys and browns. It was not as bright and brilliant as the reds and purples Genevieve coveted, thank goodness. But it was a soft apricot colour, with a low front and long sleeves trimmed with lace. The smooth fabric of the dress felt expensive to the touch. Letitia was not sure what it was made of, but she was certain it was not cotton or linen. The dress was finer than anything Letitia had ever worn before, but this made Letitia fear that this only served to make her, by contrast, look duller than ever. Are you sure this dress suits me? Letitia looked at Genevieve anxiously, her head bowed. It isn't at all like my usual garments. You say that like it's a bad thing. Genevieve laughed. You're an attractive young woman, Letty. You ought to learn to make the most of your charms. Your companion is quite right. Shopkeeper, an elderly woman with gnarled hands and very pale eyes, nodded her head in agreement. The dress suits you well, madam. It's as though it was made for you. There, you see? It's 2 against 1. This is a fight you've no hope of winning, my dear Letty. I hadn't realised this was a fight. Letitia examined her reflection anew, her brow furrowed. The Letitia she saw within the mirror looked pale and peaky, and her eyes kept darting hither and thither, evidently unsure of herself. Letitia's shoulders were hunched, and she looked very much like she wanted to curl up on herself and disappear. Wearing such a fine dress felt like an ordeal even with the confines of a shop, with nobody to look at her save Genevieve and its elderly proprietress. How in the world could she wear such a dress out in public? I don't know about this, Jenny. Perhaps we should put it back. And why should we do that? Genevieve scowled, obstinate as ever. You've turned your nose up at every dress I've shown you thus far. You need to choose at least one, or I'll never be able to forgive myself. But it looks foolish on me. It would look better, I'm certain, if you stood up straight. Put your shoulders back and your head up. Genevieve poked Letitia in the ribs. She made her squeak. Don't look at the floor, for goodness sake. You're 24, not 14. Anybody would think you're an awkward adolescent to look at you. I'm sorry. Letitia bowed her head, her cheeks burning. But this, as it transpired, was the wrong thing to do. Letty, aren't you listening to me? I already told you to keep your head up. Genevieve poked Letitia in the side anew, which made Letitia squeak again. Please have mercy on me. Oh, you young girls. The shopkeeper smiled at their antics and shook her head. Her expression was lightly amused, like that of a grandmother observing her grandchildren. I think your friend is right, dear. You need to be more confident. You aren't unattractive, really. You just need to learn how to best show yourself off. See, I told you so. You might be incapable of heeding my advice, my dear Letty, but do try to listen to this nice old lady. We only want what's best for you. You're nice enough to me as it is, Jenny. I couldn't make you buy me this dress. You're not making me do anything. I'm offering to buy you this dress, you silly thing, because I like you. At least let me treat you this once. But, no buts. Genevieve readjusted the neckline of the dress. Letitia shivered when Genevieve's finger brushed her skin, then smoothed out the hem. I'm not doing this because I want to fritter my money away. I do genuinely want to help you. You're so very sweet and kind and clever. It seems wrong you should shrink away from your own reflection. Don't be so hard on yourself, please. I value you a lot, and it hurts me to hear you put yourself down. It does? Yes, it's annoying. It's upsetting. It's frustrating. I like you a lot, so please. Can't you learn to like yourself too, even if it's only a little bit? Jenny. Genevieve hadn't used the word love, but she hadn't needed to. Her passion was more than apparent. Her voice so earnest, it made Letitia's heart tremble. Letitia hoped the elderly shopkeeper could not divine the true meaning behind Genevieve's entreaty. And to her relief, she seemed not to suspect a thing. In her eyes, at least. Letitia and Genevieve appeared nothing more, and nothing beyond good friends. It was unthinkable, after all, that two women in polite society should be anything more than that. Oh, all right, then. Letitia glanced back at her reflection. She was still unsure if she liked the person reflected back at her, but at least she looked different. Perhaps that was a good thing. She had changed a good deal inwardly upon meeting Genevieve. Why should these changes not be reflected outwardly, too? If you think this dress suits me, then I suppose we can buy it. It will be a nice memento of the day, if nothing else. It will be more than a memento. I'd best see you wearing it, Letty, else I'll be cross. I might even scold you. Scold me? You can't. I'm older than you are. Are you now? Genevieve raised an eyebrow. You're not acting like it right now. Jenny, please. You're not being fair. Life isn't fair. You'd best get used to it. Well, I know that. Letitia sighed and the shopkeeper laughed again. Have you decided to buy this dress? Yes, we have, though I think it'll need some alterations first. The hem could be raised by a few inches and the waist needs to be cinched in. You raise an excellent point, young madame. Your friend does have quite the slender figure. She was so hunched over I quite failed to notice it. The Dom texted Sub out dress shopping. Yes! Yes, exactly. The old woman smiled genially. This is a great scene. It's very sweet. It's so fun. These alterations shouldn't take very long, even with old hands like mine. Would you like to wait while I fix this dress up nice and proper? Yes, please. Though you needn't rush. Genevieve returned to the old woman's smile with a cheeky one of her own. It's nice to see Letty wearing nice clothes for a change. I'd like to look at her in this dress for as long as possible. Jenny? Letitia's face turned red at this, anxious once more, but then again, when did she ever not feel anxious in Genevieve's presence? She glanced to one side. Though Genevieve said she liked to look at Letitia in pretty dresses, the expression on her face told quite a different story. Her eyes were shining, sharper than a knife's edge, and the smile upon her lips would not have looked out of place on a dandy's. Genevieve might have enjoyed seeing Letitia dressed up, but Letitia thought she would far rather have seen her dressed in nothing at all. That reminds me of the common concept that I hear about sometimes, where people will say, oh, they bought you the clothes because they want to take them off you. It's funny. I am sensing a similar feeling. Good heavens. Letitia shook her head. She felt drained already, and the old woman had yet to begin making the adjustments. Genevieve had stipulated to her new gown. If this kept up, Genevieve might truly be the death of her. The rest of the day passed like a dream. Time did not seem to move as it should, and soon, too soon, or so Letitia fancied, the sun began to set. When the lamplighters came to illuminate York's streets, both Letitia and Genevieve took this as their cue to return to Hatton. They walked through the nighttime streets together, Letitia's arms laden with parcels. Their soles clacked in harmony against the cobblestones and their shoulders brushed. She and Genevieve were so very close. Letitia wished the moment could last forever. The pair of them walking together for all eternity. Letitia had already done a great deal of walking that day, however, and her feet were beginning to ache. Her arms ached too, from carrying Genevieve's impulsive purchases, and the chill wind disturbed her neatly pinned hair. The thought in lying in bed, a warming pan at her feet, was a most appealing one. It did not take the pair long to find Gerard in his carriage, awaiting them at their agreed meeting spot. Letty hurried towards him, her arms overflowing with shopping bags and shoe boxes, with little thought save divesting herself of all her wares. What ho! What do we have here? I like Gerard. I like Gerard a lot. He's so fun. Gerard grinned when he saw Letty approach, his eyes flicking to her overburdened arms. What's all this then? Thou must have brought out half the tailors in York. Don't be stupid, Locket. Genevieve rolled her eyes. It's only a few bits and pieces. Few bits and pieces? Well, I never. I wonder how much that loss cost. Seems mighty expensive from where I'm standing, but then again, I don't know much about women's clothes. Gerard laughed. Forgive me for prying, Miss Reed, but can you really afford of that lot on a governess's wage? This isn't mine, not all of it at least. Most of it is Genevieve's. Aha! Now I understand. Gerard nodded his head sagely. So the young missy brought you along to be a pack mule, did she? How very considerate of her. She truly is an angel. I offered to carry everything. I don't mind, really. Thou mightn't mind, but hast thou ever thought thee should? You're the young Mrs. Governess, not her slave. You can't carry all that. And it's not fair that thou should be expected to do so. Let me. He's so lovely. Gerard helped Letty with some of the packages, then deposited them inside the carriage's plush interior. To Genevieve's indignation, Don't crease them, you fool. Those dresses are worth more than your life. Once finished with this task, Gerard wiped his hands on the front of his trousers. That should take care of the worst of it. Now then, are we all ready to leave? Naturally. If we weren't, we wouldn't be here. Hope we didn't keep you waiting too long. Not at all, not at all. It's all in a day's work. At least it keeps me out the house. Watch your step now. Shall I help thee? Gerard held out his hand, palm facing upwards. But as before, Genevieve refused to take it. She eyed Gerard for a few moments as though his hand were a rotten piece of meat. Then her eyes narrowed. Oh, for God's sake. What? You stink like a brewery. Are you sure you're fit to drive us back home? I'm fit as a fiddle, miss. You needn't worry about me. I can hold my drink with the best of them. Let us hope that is true for your sake, or I will complain to my father. Now, missy, don't be like that. I didn't have too much. You shouldn't have had anything at all. What? Gerard recoiled in faux surprise. You can't be serious, young miss. What else was I supposed to do, waiting for thee all day? I had to occupy myself in some way. And you had to turn to drinking? It's something to do, ain't it? Makes the time pass, if naught else. And is that all you did to make the time pass? Well, one doesn't like to boast, but I might have won a game or two of dice up at the Golden Fleece. My pockets are well and truly golden now. Let's go. He got money now. Good for him. So you've been gambling too. My. Genevieve tutted. What a litany of sins you've committed. God would be disappointed. As if thou has any right to tell me about God. When thou made such a scene at church a couple of months past, thou's more of a hellion than I'll ever be. Drinking and gambling? Goh! Those are God-honouring activities, if I've ever heard of them. Gerard grinned good-naturedly and once more offered his hand to Genevieve. Genevieve, however, rebuffed him as though his touch was something rancid. I will be quite all right on my own, thank you. Genevieve took a seat in the carriage, and Letty soon followed suit. Chuckling to himself, Gerard closed the door with a thud, then took his position at the front of the vehicle. There was a yah! Then a crack of a whip, and soon the carriage began to move. The large wheels rumbled over the cobblestone streets, and the clipping of the horses' hooves echoed through the air. If Genevieve was worried about Gerard's alcohol consumption, she needn't have been. He held the reins steady, and the carriage did not list even as they tilted, navigated the potholed city roads, or the narrow country ones. The regular motions of the carriage were comforting, and Letty found herself yawning. She pressed her hand against her mouth, trying to suppress it, but she was too late. Genevieve had already seen. Sleepy? A little. Letty smiled at Genevieve shyly. We had quite the day. Yes, indeed we did. I brought myself so many lovely new clothes. What do you think, Letty? Did you have fun? Of course I did. That should go without saying. Really? But you only bought one new dress. I was prepared to pay for more. That's fine. One fancy dress is more than enough for me. Are you sure? Quite. Trying on just one dress had been exhausting enough. Letty doubted she could have enjoyed much more. That dress was nice enough, I suppose, but there were other, more elaborate gowns I would have liked to see you in. I wanted to dress you up in all sorts of styles. Like a doll, you mean? Hey! Oh yes, that would have been grand. I loved playing with dolls when I was a young girl. I laboured over their fiddly little socks and shoes and all the tiny buttons. Small though their outfits were, every single stitch was sewn with love. Their dresses and underskirts were to die for. How lucky you were. Letty sighed wistfully. Yes, doll mention. It's like a celebrity sighting. She had always wanted a china doll when she was younger, with real hair and eyes that blinked. But she had never been allowed one. Her parents had said that such a frivolity was too expensive. Letty had been left to content herself instead with a series of clothes peg dolls with painted on faces and natty clothes, made from her mother's scrapbox. I'm much too old to play with dolls now, of course. But I will never tire of dressing and undressing you, Letty. I appreciate the sentiment, but... Letty fingered the bag which contained the only item from their trip which had been brought for her. The apricot-coloured dress, which Genevieve had picked out for her, lay folded inside, all soft lace and ribbons. I think this dress is beautiful enough. I couldn't accept anything else. I'll hang it in my wardrobe. Whenever I see it, I think she'll think of you and all the fun times we've spent together. That would be more than enough to make me happy. He. Genevieve smirked. You're so easy to please. You could stand to be a bit more selfish. I think I've been plenty selfish as it is, monopolising your time as much as I have. You could always stand to monopolise me even more. I wouldn't mind. Jenny? Letitia? Genevieve shifted forth on her seat. She reached out, her fingers long and slender in the dark, and enveloped Letitia's hands with her own. Seems a shame that our day should have to end already. It went by so very quickly. How funny. I was thinking much the same thing myself. Well, that goes without saying. When you're with the person you love, it's natural you'll want to stay with them. Genevieve giggled softly. I was looking forward to this day. Now that it's over, I don't know what to do with myself. We could arrange to go out again. We could, I suppose. But that would also come to an end, just like today has, and we'd once again have to return to miserable old Hatton. I thought you didn't mind Hatton too much. You said you liked the moors. I do like them, but... oh, I don't know. Genevieve did not choose to elaborate further, but she did not need to. Letitia knew exactly how Genevieve felt. It had been a long time since Letitia had last visited a busy city, and she had missed it. York, unlike Beeston, was large and sprawling and delightfully impersonal, filled with so many people that nobody had bothered to give Letitia a second glance. People, men chiefly, had given Genevieve second glances, and in some cases third and fourth glances too, but this, of course, had been expected. Genevieve's beauty was unmistakable. Her red curls and her mischievous eyes practically seemed to invite staring. Fortunately, none of the men captivated by Genevieve's easy laughter had dared approach her. They must have deduced that Letitia was Genevieve's governess, and they had steered clear. Perhaps they had assumed that Genevieve was younger than she was, 16, 15, 14. Perhaps they had seen how closely Genevieve and Letitia had promenaded together, and they had been too self-conscious to come between them. In any case, Letitia's outing had been more enjoyable than she had imagined. Now it was over, she felt bereft, empty even. She had no Letty did not want to return to Hatton to find herself surrounded by sharp-tongued, whispering servants. She would far rather stay with Genevieve, isolated from the outside world and the malicious, malignant people who lived within it. If only that was possible. Hey, Letty. I was wondering... Genevieve's voice dropped to a whisper. In the crisp darkness of the night, with the stars twinkling beyond the carriage's window, her voice sounded conspiratorial, like that of a marauders plotting some manner of mischief. Letty swallowed. She felt her throat convulse beneath the high collar of her tightly fitting blouse. What is it, Jenny? I know this might sound foolish, but... Genevieve's fingers squeezed Letitia's. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just run away? Just me and you? Then we could always be together and we would never have to worry about anybody else or these silly, stuffy opinions. We could live in a city like York, or maybe even London. There would be so many people we'd still be left entirely to our devices. We could wear fine clothes, go shopping every day and enjoy ourselves. I would never need to see my father again or awful old Rowena. Doesn't that sound amazing? Genevieve's impassioned words painted such pictures so very vivid that Letty could almost see it. They would sleep together in the same bed every night, and when they awoke, they would pepper one another's cheeks and lips with kisses. Their days would be long and hazy, devoted to nothing more than the pursuit of pleasure. And perhaps, with enough free time, they would learn how to love one another more than they already did. But this, alas, was nothing more than a daydream. Sadly, Letty shook her head. It sounds amazing, but it isn't possible. We don't have any money. You might not, but I do. You forget that my father is rich. But that is his money, not yours. Unless he dies, you won't be entitled to a single penny of it. Ah, yes. If he dies... Genevieve heaved a sigh. Now that is a rub. Jenny, Letty narrowed her eyes. You aren't scheming something, are you? Scheming? Oh no, I'm not that unscrupulous. Daydreaming, though. Genevieve disentangled her hands from Letitia's and sat back, staring out the window at the dark night sky. That's a different matter. Genevieve's voice sounded so very wistful that Letty could not help but shiver. If only there was a way they could be together. Then the days of happiness could continue uninterrupted. As it stood, however, this was naught but an impossibility. While most humans had around 206 bones in their body, or so Letty had heard, she herself must have possessed at least 30 fewer. She had been born without a spine, and the thought of running away from her job left Letty feeling cold. What would she do if she fled Hatton, if she did flee Hatton with Genevieve? How would they live and where would they go? It was all very well and good to cook up a childish fantasy of feeding upon one another's love, but it wasn't possible to survive on a diet of love alone. Letty was familiar with Shakespeare's works, and she didn't want to end up like poor, lovelorn Juliet. She could not afford to let herself daydream about a future which could not happen. That would only make her inevitable parting from Genevieve hurt all the more. The cat has just walked in, chat. A cat has just walked in and is screaming at me. Just a moment. What's up, baby? What are you doing? Yeah? Big screaming? Big screaming? Yeah? Big words? Amazing big screaming from Hine on the floor. It was late at night, past 10 o'clock, when the carriage finally returned to Hatton Manor. can see you're very invested, Wolfie. I appreciate that. Letitia thanked Jared for his service. Genevieve, meanwhile, ignored him, then skipped up all the bags and boxes that Genevieve had purchased. Her arms, thus encumbered, Letitia walked through Hatton's imposing doors. She was soon swallowed by the high-ceilinged entrance room, and a vague sense of melancholy settled upon her. It's almost as though she and Genevieve had never left Hatton. Now that their jaunt was over, what else was there to look forward to? Sighing, Letitia sat Genevieve's purchases down on the floor. She arranged them carefully, neatly, careful not to jostle the boxes or crumble the folded gowns. She did not think Genevieve would appreciate having her new clothes ruined. As Letitia looked at this collection of clothes, she felt her heart grow heavy. These bags and boxes were the only proof that remained that the pair of them had even gone on a trip. How quickly time passed, and how ephemeral it seemed. When all was said and done, it seemed like less than an hour ago that Genevieve had led her through the entrance hall and out to the carriage, ready to commence their journey. Now their day was over. Letty. Genevieve approached Letitia while she was subsumed in thought, her voice dropping to a whisper, so as not to startle her. Will you carry my things to my bedroom for me? My arms are much too slender to do so myself. What? But... Letitia blinked, dark shadows pooling beneath her eyes. Isn't your room off limits? I have no business going there, not as your governess. Not unless I ask you to, and I'm asking. No, demanding. Genevieve stared into Letitia's eyes, her own large and imploring. You wouldn't make me take all these dresses and shoes and hats and bags of my own, would you? I thought that you cared about me. I do care about you. I care a good deal. Letitia's problem, in fact, was that she cared rather too much. It's just... Letitia glanced about the darkened hallway fitfully, afraid that at any moment she might be spotted by Miss Ree. If anybody were to find out about this, then... Shh. Genevieve pressed her index finger against Letitia's lips, as she often did when Letitia was attacked by anxiety. It'll be fine. Don't worry so much. Don't you want to spend more time with me? I do. Of course I do. I don't want that day to end either. Then it shan't. I won't let it. But... Letty, please. Genevieve took another step towards Letitia. She leant in, her lips inches away from Letitia's, and softly said, If we cannot run away together, then at least pretend we can. If only for a little while. I like you a good deal, you see, and I'm not prepared to give you up just yet. Jenny, you... In the entrance hall? Eagle-eyed viewers will recognize the thumbnail from the VODs channel. Letitia tried to protest, but her words were soon muffled. Genevieve dipped her head, her auburn hair falling over her shoulders, then claiming Letitia's mouth with her own lips. They were kissing, not in secrecy in the schoolroom, but in Hatton's vast entrance hall. The entrance hall was one of the more frequently traversed areas of Hatton, used heavily by all its inhabitants, save perhaps for Arthur, who so rarely left his study. Anybody could have passed by, even given the lateness of the hour, and if they had, they surely would have seen them. Anxiety beat within Letitia's breast like a drum. Her body felt simultaneously hot and cold, and her legs, weary after a long day, began to tremble. All of a sudden, Letitia felt exhausted. Her heart and her mind were being pulled in two opposing directions, and as always happened with Genevieve, Letitia found herself surrendering. She gasped into Genevieve's kiss, her eyelashes falling shut. Her arms, which had hitherto been frozen at her sides, soon looped about Genevieve's waist, pulling her closer, tighter. Letitia wanted more. She needed more. She did not want the day to end either. The thought was far too painful. Letty. Jenny. Oh, Jenny. Letitia gasped against Genevieve's mouth, as helpless as a newborn babe. Her legs felt like jelly now and she would have fallen were it not for Genevieve's arms anchoring her in place. Letty. Genevieve drew back, breaking the kiss. Her eyes were half-lidded, her cheeks daubed with a soft, pale pink blush, and her chest rose and fell with each inhalation. She looked every bit as desperate as Letitia felt. If we're going to do this, we shouldn't do it here, not out in the open. We need to go to my room. Come on. But all of your clothes. Forget about it. A servant can bring them up tomorrow morning. For now. Genevieve's countenance darkened with desire. I'd far rather enjoy my time with you. How saucy. With the wonderful day Letitia had spent with Genevieve behind her, time once more resumed its ceaseless, unrelenting march. The new year came and went, with equal parts celebration and superstitions from the servants, and in the wake of its passing, the month of January commenced. The wintry weather became colder still, and the sky greyer. The moors were blanketed with thick fog during the early morning, and the scrubby grass swayed in the breeze. The view beyond Letitia's window, obscured as it was by trailing fronds of ivy, was nothing short of depressing. Never before had the moors seemed so haunting. Letitia fancied herself as a practical person, but she almost found herself believing that the moors really might be haunted. They were so vast and desolate, it seemed anything could lurk among them mist out of sight. Alas, the cold was not consigned solely to the wind-swept moors. It made its way back into Hatton too, slithering its way through gaps in windows and doorways and the spaces between loose tiles. Though Hatton was a grand building, it was old, and it put up little defence against the winter chill. It sometimes seemed even colder inside the house, in fact, than it was outside. In the mornings, Letitia's bedroom felt akin to a mortuary, and that was to say nothing of the schoolroom. Genevieve complained frequently that it was so cold she could not hold her pencil, and Letitia did not begrudge her for taking so little interest in her lessons. That did not mean Letitia did not try, though, because she did. She'd always been a hard worker, or as Genevieve termed it, a goody two-shoes, and she did not want to let her employer down. That was what Letitia told herself as she begrudgingly pulled her covers back every morning. But that was not the sole reason behind her newfound enthusiasm. It was the promise of seeing Genevieve again, more so than her monthly allowance, which spurred Letitia into waking every morn. Letitia would let herself lie in bed for 5 minutes at most, luxuriating in the relative warmth of the bed, until with a look of grim determination on her face she would pull the covers back and haul herself to her feet. The Arctic cold was bearable so long as Genevieve was there to endure it alongside her. Letitia would have borne any indignity to see the young mistress. She would even have trekked across an ocean of broken glass had she known that Genevieve was waiting for her upon the opposite bank. Ever since their trip to York, Genevieve had fast become the most important person in Letitia's life. But Genevieve was the first thing she thought of when she awoke, and the last thing she thought of before she slept. When she did sleep, meanwhile, her dreams were often full of Genevieve. Sometimes, Letitia wondered whether Genevieve had managed to embed the piece of herself inside her. That seemed the only explanation for her body yearned so incessantly for Genevieve's closeness, her companionship. All of a sudden, the 8 hours Letitia had in Genevieve's company a day did not seem like enough. She wanted all of Genevieve's stray hours, down to the very last second. The lessons went by too quickly, and there was so much Letitia wanted to say that she could not. Bound by her duties as a governess as she was, Letitia was obliged to lecture Genevieve about past kings and queens, great wars, and Britain's overseas territories, as if any of it mattered. Such affairs all paled in comparison when contrasted with Genevieve's beauty. Letitia was so sick and tired of history books she felt as though she might cry. If she had the bravery, she might set their pages alight and dash the wooden globe upon the floor for good measure. Throughout their lessons, which were always invariably accompanied by the low moaning of the wind, Letitia thought of holding Genevieve in her arms and kissing her and touching her. They had not been intimate, however, since the night of the trip they had forsaken to York in December. There simply did not seem to be enough time for it. They still conducted themselves as friends might, their conversations overly friendly for a governess and her pupil. But Genevieve's heart did not seem to be truly in it. Her words were vague and shapeless, and often she would stare past Letty and out the windows behind her. Letitia's feelings for Genevieve had ignited, but Genevieve's own had cooled. The more Letty longed for her, the more distant Genevieve seemed to become. Perhaps, Letty tried to console herself, this could be explained away by the weather. Genevieve must be feeling out of sorts. Surely things would be right again when spring came, and the moor shook off the veil of fog which blanketed them. The sun would shine once more, the flowers would begin to blossom anew, and Genevieve's love for her would be invigorated. She needed only to wait. As Genevieve's governess, Letty was to remain by her side. There was no need for concern. Letty had no plans to leave Hatton, and Genevieve, with no engagement ring upon her finger, could not leave either. They would continue to stay together, and their feelings could continue to flourish. Letty clung to this tremulous belief, nurturing it as a gardener might, with continued hope in the future, until one frosty morning, when Letitia's earnest hopes were dashed. Letty had risen at 7 o'clock at a normal hour. After lying in bed for several minutes, she had risen and dressed and washed her face. Dinah had arrived with her breakfast, which she had eaten half of. Letty could rarely eat during these January mornings, her heart being so full of Genevieve she doubted anything else would fit inside her. Wolfie, you don't want to cry? Boy! Tragedy was in the books for this game the moment it started. This is not a happy ending time. Once she had finished her food, what little she could finish rather, Letty had made her way to the schoolroom. Letty had arrived in the schoolroom 30 minutes early. She had always arrived at least 10 minutes ahead of schedule. Letty could not stand to be late. But now his desire to see Genevieve was so strong she could not sit by idly in her bedroom. Letty wanted to see Genevieve as soon as she could, forever anxious to reduce the time between their next meeting. She knew, logically, that going to the schoolroom half an hour early would bring her no further in accomplishing this. Whether she waited in her bedroom or at the schoolroom, Genevieve would arrive late, 10, 15, maybe 30 minutes later. In the past, Letty had scolded Genevieve for her tardiness. Now she did not bother. She accepted this flaw as part of Genevieve's character, and she did not love her any less for it. Still, the tension was unbearable. Letty felt slightly closer to Genevieve in the schoolroom than she did in her own bedroom, for this was where they had first confessed their love. Without Genevieve, however, the fond memories held within this room seemed dull and grey, as if in monochrome. Vague reminiscences which refused to come to life. Without Genevieve, Letty feared she would not be able to be happy. Genevieve had given her more love than anybody ever had. Now a glutton for it, Letty wanted more and more. Was that why Genevieve had begun to pull away from her? Could she see how needy Letty was? Perhaps her desperation disgusted her. It was not a pleasant trait in a woman, particularly an old woman like herself, but no. Letty refused to allow herself to dwell upon such dismal thoughts. Everything would be fine. Genevieve had said as much. She had told Letty that she loved her, and love was not something that could die so very easily. Agitated, Letty began to pace the schoolroom. The old boards creaked beneath her feet as if in protest, while the wind outside moaned. For want of anything better to do, Letty began to rearrange the history books upon the shelves. She lifted each heavy tome from the shelf and dusted them individually, one by one, until they shone. 30 minutes had passed. It was 8 o'clock now, but there was still no sign of Genevieve. Letty abandoned the shelf of history books and turned to the wooden globe. She turned it, fingertips pressed against the wood, and shivered at how very cold it was. The clouds in the sky were thick, and there was no space at all for the sun to peep out. It had been an absence for the last week, unable to warm the schoolroom, even when the shutters were wide open. The lack of sun cast a sad, dismal pall over the room. All the objects contained within it seemed grey and dull and lifeless. anxious now. Letty began to polish the globe. She polished it until her arm ached, but the globe did not look any brighter. It was almost as though the globe and the room which housed it had been veiled in a fine film of fog, much like the mists which swirled outdoors. Letty looked up at the clock. It was now 20 minutes past the hour. Anxiety began to gnaw in the pit of Letty's stomach, though she did her best to ignore it. For want of anything better to do, Letty crossed the room to the piano. She cracked open the lid. It felt far too heavy in her trembling hands to reveal a gaping mouth of white and black. It looked almost as though it was mocking her. Letty tensed. Surely she was being foolish. Her imagination was getting the better of her, yet again. You don't know where Genevieve is, do you? Letty whispered to the piano, which, as one might have expected, had nothing of note to respond with. Without human hands to play it, the grand instrument would remain dormant, as quiet as poor Philomena with her mutilated tongue. Suddenly, the silence of the schoolroom felt overwhelming. There was something so deep and awful about it, Letty could feel it reverberating within her breast. The stillness and the loneliness and the sense of immense isolation which came with it. Letty had been quiet from her inception, hardly daring to squall even as a newborn baby. She had only become more insular, not less, as she grew older, bidden to keep a tight lid on her emotions, for fear that all who knew the truth about her feelings for the fairer sex would come to despise her. Letty had not thought of herself as worthy of love or deserving of it, but Genevieve had proven her wrong. Genevieve had learned of how Letty felt, and she had loved her regardless. That was why Letty could not bear to be apart from her. She had never been accepted in such a way before, and she feared it would never happen again. Letty's fingers found the white keys, then the black. Slowly and haltingly she began to play. It was one of the pieces she had played often with Clara during her lessons, when she had still lived in London. A composition by Liszt. All of a sudden, Clara, the Mortimer family, and their neat terraced home in London seemed to inhabit a different world to Letty. One wholly divorced from her current musings. Letty had not seen her former pupil in months. Letty continued to play, all the while keeping an eye on the clock. She must have been playing for longer than she had thought, because it was almost 9 o'clock, and still Genevieve was not there. Genevieve had been late to her lessons before, but she had never been quite this late. The anxiety, which Letty had tried to keep at bay with busy work, began to gnaw at her insides with renewed strength. This anxiety had sharp pointed teeth, and it tore her stomach to shreds. Where in the world was Genevieve? It was almost as though she vanished into thin air, dissipating like Andersen's lovelorn mermaid into so much sea foam. When Letty could bear the silence no longer, she ceased playing, the dying cadences of the wistful Liszt piece mingling with that of the wind outside. Now, quite agitated, Letty rose and exited the schoolroom with hurried steps. The brief flurry of activity helped to calm Letty's nerves, but she was still no nearer to locating Genevieve. Had something happened to her? Was she unwell? If so, it was not unreasonable to think she might have been stricken down from the cold. Genevieve might at that very instant be lying abed, feverish, lamenting that she could not see her beloved Letty. If that were the case, though, it seemed unusual Miss Reed would not have come to inform Letty of this. Surely she had not been expected to wait in the schoolroom indefinitely until the setting of the sun. Something strange was afoot, of that much Letty was certain. She just needed to learn what. Fortunately, it did not take Letty all that long to stumble upon a lead. She had been walking through the extensive hallways of Hatton on her way to Genevieve's chamber when she found Dinah. Dinah had been busily engaged with sweeping the floor, a broom clenched tight in her hands. But she turned upon hearing Letty's approaching footsteps. "Oh, Letty, it's you!" Relief spread across Dinah's pretty face, and she pressed one hand to her breast. "I was afraid that you'd be Miss Reed come to scold me about something or other. She likes to do that." Yes, I can imagine. Letty bit her lip. The coil of anxiety which squirmed in her stomach had yet to be vanquished, and Dinah must have seen this, for her expression fell. Are you all right? Did something happen? Not to me, but to Genevieve. Miss Langley, rather. Miss Langley? Dinah's eyes widened. What's the matter? I thought it was rather strange to see you outside the schoolroom, given the hour. The young miss hasn't hurt herself, has she? No, it's just... I don't know. Letty suddenly exclaimed, afraid, her fingers tightening about the fabric of her skirt. I waited in the schoolroom for her like I usually do. I waited and waited, but over an hour passed and she hadn't come. I've not seen her all day. I've no idea where she is. What? Then you mean to say... Dinah's face blanched. The young mistress has vanished? That is how it appears, yes? You haven't heard anything about it, have you? Do you know if she's sick? If she was sick, surely Miss Rue would have informed you of the matter. It would be unfair to leave you waiting for a pupil who will never arrive. That is what I thought. I doubt Genevieve is unwell, but if that is not the case, then where is she? I don't know, but... Dinah shifted, still clutching her broom. What little colour remained in her cheeks faded from it, which made her skin, already so pale, look like bone china. Letty did not like the look upon Dinah's face, not in the slightest. Dinah? Letty swallowed. She screwed her fingers into fists, hoping this might give her some courage. Are you sure you haven't seen Miss Langley? If you know where she might be, it would be most appreciated. I can hardly teach her like this. Letty attempted a laugh, but it sounded fake and hollow, and it did little to dispel the awkward atmosphere. If anything, it made the stagnant air feel even thicker. I did see her, though only briefly. I know where she might have been this morning, but I'm not sure where she could be now. It has been a while. A while? What are you talking about? Only that, please, do not panic, but... After I served your breakfast, I was called upon to deliver a tray to the master's office. Annie and I often take it in turns to deliver his meals, you see. Nothing out of the ordinary occurred. I was afraid of what he might do to me, of course. I've always been wary of entering his study even before. Dinah paused. Before all this horribleness began. His study unnerves me. I don't like to look upon those paintings of the dead mistress or little Gareth or those awful taxidermy birds. But in any case... Yes, this will be in the vaudeville feed. Don't worry about stepping away. The master was in good spirits today. I took that as a good sign. He only seems to paw and grab at me when he is overwhelmed by memories. Memories? Of his wife, Lady Langley. When his mood is good, he leaves me be. I told myself there was nothing to worry about, but... Dinah's fingers tightened about the broom. She was gripping it so tightly now it might as well have been a talisman. Her foot and her knuckles standing taut beneath her flesh like snow-capped mountains. Before I left, he told me something, or rather he ordered me to do something. He said... Yes? What is it, Dinah? What did Arthur say? Letty took a step forth. She tried to square her shoulders, but Dinah's words were whittling down her confidence, which was already threadbare. She felt smaller and smaller with each passing second. Letty had a vague idea of what it was Arthur Langley had wanted, but she did not want to believe it. She could not believe. He said... Dinah swallowed. He said that he wished to see his daughter, and that if our paths crossed, I should ask her to come to his study as soon as possible, so he could speak to her. No. The dread which Letty had been trying to fend off washed over her like an icy blanket. It numbed her limbs and froze her heart. Nightmare scenarios began to blossom inside her mind. They unfurled like the wings of an unholy demon, blotting out all light and all logic alongside it. Arthur Langley had asked Genevieve to come up to his study. Arthur Langley had never before asked Genevieve to come to his study. He was a veritable hermit, emerging from his chamber only for celebrations and important occasions. When Letty had first met Arthur, he had explicitly asked her to keep Genevieve away from him. Though Arthur seemed to love his daughter, he was awkward around her. He had defended her from Miss Ree's barbs, but he still tried to keep his distance. Arthur Langley could not relax around Genevieve. Her very presence seemed to unsettle him. Why then had he asked Dinah to summon her? What could he possibly want? What did he stand to gain? It couldn't be. Dinah? It took several seconds before Letitia felt capable of replying. She swallowed down her apprehension, which threatened to choke her, and whispered, "You didn't obey him, did you?" "I had to obey him. He is my employer. I can't ignore his wishes. You know that. I was afraid if I didn't. I was worried." Dinah wrapped her arms about her middle. She was quaking too, almost as fitfully as Letitia was. I didn't want him to turn against me. He might seem pleasant enough, but I know that to be nothing more than an act. I know what he's really like better than anybody in this rotten place. I had no choice but to obey him." "So you relayed his message to Genevieve?" "I did. I went to her bedroom post-haste and I delivered her father's summons." "And what did she say? What did she do?" "She was surprised, I think. Suspicious, maybe. She didn't seem very happy about it. 'My father never talks to me. Why would he want to start now?' That's what she said. It was a fair question. I said I didn't know why he wanted to speak to her, but perhaps he wished to make amends. 'You never know, miss,' I told her. 'Maybe he wants to apologize for ignoring you.' 'Apologize?' Miss Langley said. 'He would never do that. He's much too proud, and in any case, he doesn't see that he has done anything wrong.' I told her maybe not. But if you don't talk to him, you'll never know what he wants. I think it would be easier on the both of you, miss, if you hear one another out. You might scorn the idea, but it might help.' And then Genevieve, what did she do?" She looked uncertain, but I must have twisted her arm. She considered, and then she gave in. She said she didn't like being in the dark, and if her father really did have something he needed to discuss, then he could do it to her face. "He has been hiding away for too long. I need to make him face reality." That's what she said, and she sounded very determined about it. She's always been so bold and brave. I'll admit I was impressed by her resolve. I did not want to think. Dinah inhaled sharply. "I didn't want to think that the master could ever hurt her. Not Genevieve, his own daughter." Letitia's skin prickled at the sound of Dinah's plaintive, heartbroken cry. Letitia did not want to believe it either. She did not want to believe Arthur Langley could hurt his daughter. It all seemed so unlikely. Arthur Langley was a polite, sincere, well-dressed gentleman, not a cold, calculating Iago. That was what Letitia tried to sell herself, but Iago had been charming too, had he not? That was how he had been able to deceive everybody so effortlessly. He had been polite, reverent even, and unassuming until the end of Othello, when all his scheming machinations had been laid bare. Real life wasn't half so dramatic as a Shakespearean tragedy. It shouldn't have been, in any event. Yet now it seemed undeniable that Arthur Langley had summoned his daughter to his study earlier that morning. Now, almost 2 hours later, Genevieve was nowhere to be seen. She had vanished. Suddenly, Letitia was reminded of her whispered early morning conversation with Dinah all those weeks prior. As he was touching me, I swore I heard him say a woman's name, but it was not my name. It could not be. I think he wanted to pretend I was someone else. It could not have been, should not have been, but I think he was calling out for Genevieve. Genevieve, who looked so very much like her mother. Genevieve, who had never been afforded the opportunity to marry. Genevieve, who Arthur, despite his clear fondness for her, tried desperately to avoid. Was that what had happened? Was it really? Letitia did not want to entertain the notion. She felt unclean for daring to think about such things. But Genevieve might be in trouble. You think so too? I don't just think so, I know so. The more Letitia thought, the more things started to make sense. The pieces of a great macabre jigsaw were finally slotting into place inside her head, one after the other. Early that morning, Genevieve had been sequestered in Arthur's study. There had been nobody else to interrupt them, and nobody in the immediate vicinity who might have heard Genevieve's plaintive cries for help. Letitia was very much doubted Genevieve would still be with her father more than an hour after the fact. It seemed likely she would have gone somewhere, anywhere, so that she might be alone and cry, far, far away from the monster who had abused her, the man who was supposed to protect her. Letty could hardly fault Genevieve for not attending her lessons on time or at all, given the circumstances. There were far, far more important things in the world than Henry VI. Genevieve had disappeared as though into the ether, but Letty thought she knew where she might be hiding. If Genevieve was still on Hatton's grounds, then there was nowhere else she could be. Now Letitia knew that she had to go and find Genevieve. She had to console her if she could, and embrace her tightly until her tears stopped falling. She could not bear to let Genevieve suffer alone. Jenny! Oh, Jenny, thank God! I was so worried about you! Letty? Genevieve had been crouching, as Letitia had expected, by one of the many lakes which were spotted about the moors. This lake was one of the deeper ones, and though it had frozen over, the ice could not quite cover its whole circumference. The centre of the lake had been solid, but its edges still rippled with gently flowing water. This water shone in the weak sunlight, and it seemed to sigh as it lapped against its own frozen banks. Letitia wondered whether fish could still survive in the water given the frigid temperatures. Did they swim deep down to the very depths where they could be safe? Or did they remain near the surface and freeze to death? Their fate was not particularly enviable. Letitia felt almost sorry for them. To exist in the darkness completely isolated was no way of living. Letitia knew that better than anybody. Letitia herself had been hopelessly isolated once, trapped in a murky mire of her own making until she had met Genevieve. Genevieve's warmth and kindness had thawed out her heart. She had brought Letitia happiness and abundance which she had not known she could experience. Now Genevieve was the one who was suffering. She needed help and desperately. But Letitia feared she was ill-equipped to aid her. She was only a governess. What could she do? It all seemed horribly, heart-rendingly hopeless. Jenny. Oh, Jenny. Letitia sighed, her pupil's name brokenly. Her words more akin to sobs than anything which might have resembled sensible conversation. Her own ineptitude, meanwhile, welled up within her, robbing her of intelligent words and thought. What was she to say? I was worried, you know, when you did not come by the schoolroom earlier this morning. Letitia forced the words out, though she had to wince at how inadequate they sounded. She doubted her petty concerns would comfort Genevieve. Compared to all Genevieve had endured, her own fears were embarrassingly mean and small. I'm glad that I finally found you, but Jenny, oh Jenny, what in the world happened to you? Letty. Genevieve averted her eyes away from those of her governess and turned to the half-frozen lake. Her head dipped, arms wound about her legs, she stared aimlessly over the water. The wind moaned, and Genevieve's red curls shifted about her face. Letty had always thought Genevieve beautiful, but now it seemed her good looks had been somewhat tarnished. Genevieve's skin was too pale, her expression wan, her hair was tangled rather than curly, and she trembled as though she might fall to 1,000 pieces. I am sorry, Letty. I did not mean to worry you. Yes? What is it, Jenny? Letty knelt down by Genevieve's side. She was aware that the hem of her skirt was brushing against the filthy riverbank, but she did not pause to adjust it. Genevieve was more important than her appearance, however slipshod it might have been. Jenny, please. Letty shyly breached the silence which had come between them. She reached out with her words, her voice tremulous as it fell from her lips in a clumsy, though well-meaning attempt to brush aside the curtain which had come between them. If you don't tell me what has happened to you, I shall not know. Why did you not come to your lessons this morning? Letty had an idea, of course, but she did not want to jump to conclusions. First, she had to hear it from Genevieve's own lips. Then, if worst fears did come to pass, then, well, she would cross that bridge when it came to it. Letty. Genevieve's lips scarcely moved. Her voice was very soft and weak, but Letty still heard it, albeit barely, above the lowing of the wind. Genevieve shuddered. She wound her arms round her middle, her fingernails digging into her arms. The rims of her eyes looked pink like those of rabbits. When Letty cocked her head, she could see the vestiges of moisture clinging to her cheeks. She must have been crying. Letty, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to worry you. It's just, I don't know what to say. It's all right. You don't need to apologize. I'm not angry. You aren't? No, not at all. I can never be angry with you. But I left you waiting. It was wrong of me. I should have told you, but I... Genevieve seemed to crumple in on herself. Her head fell forth, her chin bumping against her clavicle, while her nails gouged and scraped against her arms. I didn't know what to say. After everything that happened, I couldn't face you. I was so ashamed, disgusted. I didn't even want to think. I didn't believe that this would ever happen to me. Tracks of tears which shone upon Genevieve's cheeks had scarcely a chance to dry before they ran wet once more. Great gasping sobs wrenched their way from Genevieve's chest. Her whole body, small and cramped and cold over though it was, quaked. She was crying violently, with more force than Letty had ever thought possible. Each choked sob sounded painful, and it twisted Letty's heart. It killed her to know that Genevieve was suffering immensely, in fact, while she was unable to help. If only she could dry her tears. Jenny, oh God, Jenny. For want of anything else to do, Letty threw her arms about Genevieve's body. She let Genevieve's head rest against her chest, and there she held her, fingers running through her hair and gentle, meaningless words of condolence on her lips. It'll be all right. Shh, Jenny, you're not alone. I'm here now at least, but... Letty might have been there for Genevieve during the present, in the aftermath of her trauma. Where had she been before then? Why had she not done anything? She could comfort Genevieve as best she could, but would not undo all the hurt Genevieve had withstood. Her reassurances would do nothing. Oh, God. Letty's heart twisted. It felt painful, as though metal hooks had been inserted deep within the still-beating muscle. Moisture began to prickle upon her own lashes, but Letty was determined that she would not cry. That would not help matters, and in any event she had no right. Genevieve was the one who had suffered, not her. Just as Genevieve had comforted her, Letty knew now she ought to comfort Genevieve in return. She was the older of the two. It was high time she acted like it. Letty had often been in awe of Genevieve. She had seemed mature beyond her 19 years, with her mischievous smiles and her knowing looks. Now, however, Letty saw Genevieve for who she was. She was still a young girl, so frail and delicate, Letty feared she would shatter. Jenny, please, Jenny, don't cry so. You'll hurt yourself. I'm sorry. Genevieve's voice was indistinct when she replied, her words fragmented with woeful sobs. Tears continued to trickle down Genevieve's cheeks, but she drew her face away from Letitia's chest all the same. Look at me, carrying on like this. I must look so stupid. I don't think you're stupid. Are you sure about that? Genevieve smiled feebly. You are my governess, Letty. You of all people should know how hopeless I am. I never pay attention in lessons. It's all too much for me. I've never been good at remembering dates or facts. I'm well aware of the fact. Letitia returned Genevieve's smile with one of her own. Your long-term memory does have a few shortcomings, shall we say, but all the same. I don't think you're stupid. You don't? No. Letitia took Genevieve's hands in her own. She thought of squeezing them, then sided against it. Genevieve looked so delicate she did not want to risk hurting her. Silence fell between the pair, broken by the lowing of the wind and the few errant sobs Genevieve could not stifle. Though the worst of Genevieve's fears had abated, her face had been left red and blotchy from crying. Her eyes were swollen as though she had been punched, and her nose was beginning to drip with mucus. Few would have called Genevieve beautiful given her current state. Yet Letitia knew as they clung to one another that her heart would remain with Genevieve for all eternity. It did not matter that Genevieve was not a pretty crier. Few people were, save the legions of lithe, pale-limbed, perfect fancy women depicted in pre-Raphaelite paintings. Letitia didn't want Genevieve to be a perfect, unblemished doll. She felt almost honoured, in fact, that Genevieve felt safe enough in her presence to allow herself to be so very vulnerable. If Genevieve trusted Letitia with her tears, Letitia hoped she would entrust her with her anxieties too. In that moment, Letitia wanted all of Genevieve, and she cared not for how selfish this might have sounded. She was prepared to be selfish if it was for the woman she loved. If she could not be selfish for Genevieve's sake, then for whose could she? Jenny, please. Letitia held Genevieve's fingers to her own breast, the interlocked hands laying against her heart. Will you tell me what happened? I'll listen to every word you have to say, and I promise I won't judge you. I won't call you stupid, I swear it. Really? Genevieve eyed Letitia hesitantly beneath the long sweep of her red lashes. I want to have faith in you, Letty, but my faith has been sorely tested as of late. I don't want to be let down again. I wouldn't, I promise. You won't recoil away from me in disgust? Or judge me for what happened? I would never. Cross your heart and hope to die. Hee, all right. Genevieve laughed softly at this, amused perhaps by their childish exchange. Then I'll tell you. I'll let you know what happened, only I don't know how much of it I'll be able to recount. Truthfully, I don't even want to talk about it. Talking might make me feel better though, and I wouldn't want to worry you either. Genevieve drew in a breath, her eyes downcast and her lips pursed. There was a small silence. Then she began to recount her tale. And it was every bit as vile as Letitia had feared it would be. Time passed, though how much of it slipped by precisely, Letitia could not say. All she knew was the softness of Genevieve's hand still entwined with her own, and the sighing of the wind as it picked at her hair and the hem of her dress. And with that, I think we will end for today. I am starting to feel the stream on my energies. I am starting to feel a bit worn. Not from the story, but like just in general stream energies. A lot has happened today. A lot has happened in today's stream. Much has happened. We had some beautiful moments, and we have ended on a truly horrific cliffhanger. What will they do next? What will Letitia and Jenny do to solve this horrific dilemma they found themselves in? Wolfie, of course you're heartbroken. It's a sad story. You knew this. Oh, honey, it was not going to end nicely. It was never going to end nicely. It would be nice if they ran away, wouldn't it? We should hope. Let's find someone to raid. Let's find someone. Azel is doing the Monster Hunter tier list with the Velociraptor twins. That's kind of hype. I kind of love that. Let's get him. Let's get our man Azel. Let's commit violence on him. It'll be a good bit of joy and jovial times after this ending. Thank you for joining me again today, everyone. As I said, there is an upcoming subathon next month. I will appreciate you all showing up if you're able. But it's going for the whole week, so don't stress about missing a day. It'll be fine. And I hope to see you all next time. Bye bye!